What's going on, fellas? This is Mike D, Mr. Double Down on You, with another episode of Black Fathers Now. And dig this, man. We really have a brother that has a story, that has a journey, that has a testimony. He just got some good stuff. And we have none other than my man, Bishop Frederick Jones. Now, he's a husband, he's a father, he's also a grandfather. He's the founder and pastor of New Life Community Baptist Church in Bristoe, Virginia. He's also the overseer of New Life Community Church in Sierra Leone. We're going to talk a little bit about that as well. But I'm going to let you know that the journey to the brother getting here has not been a straight line. And that's what we're really going to kind of talk about. There's been some twists and turns there. But brothers and ladies listening too, because y'all like to tune in to what we're talking about, let's welcome my man, Bishop Frederick Jones. How you doing, brother?
Blessings to you, my brother Mike, and thank you so much for this invitation and opportunity, and thank God for your platform, and I feel honored and privileged to be a part of it today, and I'm excited just to share my story where God can be glorified and the people of God can be edified.
Man, that's what this is all about, man. That's what this is all about. Look, you know, we carry our light and we just lighten other candles, right?
That's right. That's
it. Lighten other candles. So
right.
Before we get into your actual journey, man, I always like to start out with shout outs, because who are we without our support system, without those that allow us to shine? And I'll tell you, I got a different perspective on this a couple of interviews ago, where there's a brother who is he's an actor and stunt performer and all of that stuff. And he said, you know, it's funny, when you look at a movie, all the important people get announced first. Executive producer, yeah. Starring, right? And I was just like, it made me really rethink this whole thing on how powerful it is to have shout outs out front, because we need to make sure we put those important people out front. So give us a shout out, brother. Give the shout out to those that are helping you to do what you do.
Well, first of all, foremost, our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
Absolutely.
All of this happened, and then he has surrounded me with some great people. And I have to start off with, when I say great people, is my family. That is a awesome support that I have. My two daughters and my wife, they're my support, as well as my son-in-law. And throughout my ministry, my youngest daughter, she's in her 30s. She's not married yet. Her name is Tiara Jones. And I say she is the brain of what goes on in the background. My platform on Thursday night, that's called Let's Talk About It. She makes all of that happen in the background. She makes me look good. My wife is the praying one, and my oldest daughter, now that she's the one, if I'm having a rough day, she's the one that can make me laugh. She can make a dog laugh. She can come in and she can make me laugh. And then my son-in-law. He is actually my armor bearer when we go places. He's the one that got my back. He is a Marine, and I thank God for him. He's a solid young man, a solid brother, and I'm happy that the Lord sent him my way to be the husband of my daughter. And so you know, I have prayer partners that prays for me from a distance. Over in Sierra Leone, man, I have a family over there that prays for me constantly. So I just thank God for a support system. And I think if you want to be successful and you want to be able to carry out what God has placed in your hands, you need a good support system.
That's so important, man. I mean, literally, who are we without our village? You know, we always state it takes a village to raise a child, but there's no way for us to be successful without a village around us. And so that's why it's so important.
It is. Because let me tell you something, I'll be honest, very transparent. Man, when it comes down to technology and stuff, man, I'm no good at it. So it's what I know my daughter has taught me, and everything that makes us look good, God has blessed her to be able to show us, hey, Dad, this is the way we can do this. We can do this. I said, all right, run with it. So my millennials and the X's and the Z's, They lead the way, man.
They got to. Yeah,
They lead the way.
It's so funny you say that, because when we think about, we think about wisdom, and we think about, advice, and we think about guidance, we're always thinking that the young folks are supposed to look to our elders for everything, which there's a role for that. We've been around, or elders have been around the block a couple of times, so they can tell us what's coming and what's around the corner and all of that. But the flip side, technology, and even like the corona crisis with having to use Zoom and virtual this and virtual that, it's caused the elders to now have to sit at the foot of the Generation X, Generation Z, and the millennials to learn themselves.
You got it, because prior to this pandemic taking place, my daughter was trying to get me to start this a long time ago. And I was like, we old school. We going into the building, standing behind the pulpit, doing that thing. And she said, Dad, you got to get to this. You got to get involved in this. And then when that pandemic hit, man, I was forced to sit down and listen to her. And I tell you something, sometimes we think we know it all, but we don't. And when you get to a place where you know it all and can't nobody tell you something, you're a dangerous person to yourself, and you're dangerous to those who are around you. So I'm never intimidated by the people that are around me. I'm willing to learn. I'm always open, and especially now. And I've never been intimidated as far as having someone around me that might be able to do something better than me. My mindset is, you need to be around those that can do it better than what you're doing it. If you're the smartest one in the room,
you need to leave.
You need to upgrade your crowd.
And it's funny you say that, and I heard it was a quote by Nipsey Hussle was floating around on Facebook or social media, and it said, if you don't get inspired by your circle, you don't have a circle, you have a cage. Like, I do too. And it's so interesting because, you're a brother who is my elder, but yet you're willing to listen and learn to everybody. Where, and again, and I'll tell you, just full transparency, that's an anomaly to an extent, because a lot of times as we become elders in various circles, we stop listening. What they call it, like when you raise a kid, they call it powdered butt syndrome. Or if I powdered your butt, I don't want to hear what you got to say. You know what I'm saying? How did you get to that mindset to listen to everybody?
I'm going to tell you, it got 5 years ago. Let me take that back. Let me say about 10 years ago, in my kitchen. Now, I was raised up in a family of 8, 5 boys and 3 girls. My oldest brother, he's gone on to be with the Lord now, as well as my mom. But they taught us certain ways to do things. Something as simple as sweeping the floor. So we're in the kitchen, and I say to my oldest daughter, I say, hey, I need you to sweep the floor for me. And I give her the broom. She started out sweeping it. And I'm like, what are you doing? She said, I'm sweeping the floor. I said, you don't hold a broom like that. This is how you do it. And so I gave the broom back to her, and she said, well, can I say something? I said, sure. She said, what is the issue if we get to the same result? If I'm holding the broom a different way than what you were taught, all that matters is I get to the same result that you want. So I said, let me tell you something. When she said that, light bulb came on in my head. And from that point on, man, I started seeing different, and I started listening more.
That takes me back. I remember I had a manager years ago, and he sat me down and he took a piece of paper and he said, I want to show you what my management style is like. He took a piece of paper, he drew a circle on the piece of paper, and he put a dot in the middle. And he said, look, as long as you stay within this circle, I don't care what you do, because all I want you to do is get to that dot in the middle. And so as you're talking, it made me think back to that, because most people romanticize a methodology, right? We romanticize how somebody does it. So I think about it's even funny now. We have kids. We have a 9 and a 7-year-old. And so when we think about like reading, or working on reading, you know, I like books. I like to turn pages. I like to hear pages turn, and I like to bend back the corners and highlight in books. Whereas somebody else might like to go on an e-reader or like a Kindle. Somebody else is all about audiobooks, and then somebody else is about watching documentaries. But the reality is, if you get the information and you process that information, does it really matter how you consume that information?
See, what we have to do is recognize if you're gonna get to where you're trying to go, you got to recognize the gifts and the talents that you got around you. You can't fight it. Now, I'll be honest. I was in a circle. I was in a circle of preachers that probably would have messed me up if the Lord hadn't delivered me out of that circle, because they were so dogmatic. And it was just one way, man. It was just one way. And if it wasn't that way, man, you was just no good. And I'm telling you, some of these guys, I would have done anything for them other than put my soul in jeopardy. But the Lord had to move me, and the way that he moved me out of that circle was they had to really do something to break my heart in order for my eyes to come open, because the Lord kept trying to show me. And I wouldn't listen. And because I was that loyal to them. And when my heart got broke over a situation, and we'll talk about this in it, because this is part of my journey. When my heart got broke, my eyes was wide open. I said, Lord, I hear you. And the Lord said, I had to get you to that point for you to see that I had to remove you from this circle.
Dude, I'm gonna tell you, Bishop, that is so, again, as you're talking, for me to process, I like to make things relate to a personal story of my own, right? That's how I can attach to something, and that's how I process it. That's how I internalize it. But then that's how I can also apply the wisdom, you know, based off of what somebody does. I'm trying to find connections. And as you were talking, I thought back to a relationship that I was in years before I met my wife. And it was the same situation. It was a scenario in which, like, the girl's mother said, Mike, she's not the one for you. And I'm justifying in my mind, she just don't want me to, she just don't want her daughter to be happy. And she's, you know, I'm justifying. And all kinds of situations happened throughout that relationship that were signed. The Lord saying, Mike, brother, I'm giving you an out. It finally came to the notion of I had to lose a job and had to move away from the city for that to become the straw that broke the camel's back, for me to finally get away and break free. Because me personally, I didn't have enough sense to see it. I didn't have enough sense to be aware of all of those signs that were around me that he was throwing and whispering in my ear saying, Mike, you need to go. Mike, you need to go. I didn't listen until the straw had to break the camel's back, and then things had to escalate to a level that was way out there for me to finally be like, okay, I'm finally done. But I guess my question to you then is, what is it about us? Is it just men? Is it, you know, people in general? What is it about us that it takes us bumping our head, or sometimes getting to almost a point of no return, where the bridge got to get burned behind us before we finally sever that tie and move forward?
You know what? That's a good question. I think sometimes we don't want to. We don't want to. I seen, like you said, I seen all the signs, but it was something in the back of my mind that says, I need this person to validate me. And I'm gonna tell you something. The Lord showed me that I didn't need it. And here's the heavy part of it. When that person did what they did to me and threw me under the bus, that's what it took for me to break away from that circle. But then when I was thrown under the bus, I walked around with unforgiveness in my heart for years. Now, this is going to lead up to my journey dealing with my wife, because at the age of 23, we got married very early. And at the age of 23, we made plans of what we're going to do, where we're going to go. by 5 years, we were going to be here. 10 years, we were going to be here. And, you know, Proverbs 16:9 says, you know, we can make our plans, but the Lord determines our steps. And so we had plans, but we didn't know what was coming down the road. And so, so my wife got sick from a tick bite. Now let me fast forward a little bit, and then I'll put it in reverse and come back.
Okay.
So she had been sick from the age of 23, and when I tell you, she almost died. But when I fast forward to the situation that the Lord moved me out of this circle, I had unforgiveness in my heart because of the way that I was treated, and I was angry, and because I felt like I was so loyal to this guy, and I just didn't think he would do something to me like that. So I was angry for years. And so a friend of mine, another preacher of mine, called me, and it was on a snowy day. Me and my oldest daughter was on our way to pick up my youngest daughter from work because I didn't want her to drive back on those icy roads. So as we were going, he just called me out of the blue and said, "Hey, Jones," he said, "Man, how you doing?" And we just went into a conversation. He said, "Man, how did that situation work out with you and so and so?" And I said, "It hasn't." I said, "Man, you know what he did. I told you my story and how he hurt me." And he said to me, he said, "Listen," he said, "you know what?" He said, "You got to forgive him. You got to call him and you got to forgive him." And I didn't want to hear that. And I was like, "Well, we'll see." I'll say, "I'll pray on it." But that was something I really didn't need to pray over, because the scripture teaches that there is no way we can walk around with unforgiveness in our heart and expect God to bless us. And all at the same time, I had a sick wife in my house. And I know if I had unforgiveness in my heart, none of my prayers to the Lord wouldn't amount to anything when it came down to me praying for her, because I had unforgiveness in my heart. And so I came to the conclusion I can't fight with the scriptures. I just can't. So what I did was I called up another pastor. I talked to him about it, and he said, "You know what? Yep, I think you need to do it." And so I called him, Mike. And this guy's seasoned. He's probably got 30 years over me in the ministry. I called him up and I said, "Hey, look, I need to talk with you. First of all, congratulations on your elevation in this organization that you're in." But I said, "I'm not calling because I want anything from you, because you just got elevated in this organization. But I need you to listen to me for a few minutes." And he said, okay. And so I said, "Listen, I know what you did. I know what you said." And I said, "You hurt me. You threw me under the bus." And I said, you really lied. But I said, "It's okay now." I said, "But what I'm calling you for, to tell you I was wrong for all of those years to hold unforgiveness in my heart against you." And he said, "No, Jones, no. And Dorsey, what my prayer was that as I came clean, I was hoping that he would come clean, because he was much more seasoned in the ministry than I was. And so as I came clean and I said, "Man, I've been walking around mad and holding unforgiveness because of what you did." And I said, "I'm asking you tonight to forgive me for holding that in my heart against you." Now, mind you, it wasn't my situation. He the one created it and did it. But I had to get that thing out of my heart. And I did. And when I asked him, I said, "All I want to know is, will you forgive me for holding unforgiveness in my heart against you?" He said, "Yeah, man. Yeah, but I wasn't." I said, "Man, listen, don't tell me that you wasn't the one. I know what happened. I know what went down. I know what went down. But," I said, "I held it in my heart. I'm asking you tonight, will you forgive me?" He said, "Yes." And so then I stopped praying and hoping that he would turn around and say, "You know what? I got caught up and I said some things I shouldn't have said about you. Will you forgive me?" But it never happened. It never happened. But what I knew that night was I had done what the scriptures said do. I followed. I was obedient to the Lord when he spoke through my friend, the other pastor, telling me I needed to do this. I was obedient. and my hands was clean, my heart was clean. Now I was in position that whatever prayer I prayed for my wife, I know the Lord was going to hear it because I had removed that stain out of my heart. Him to forgive me. And to this day, he has yet to say, hey, I was wrong in this. Let me come back and say I'm sorry. He never did. But that's between him and God. I still love him as a brother. But one thing about forgiveness is that once you forgive a person, that doesn't mean they get to come back and sit at the same table with you or have a front row seat. Ooh, lost that.
Man, you have to dive into that because, I'll tell you, there have been countless examples, when we see someone publicly forgive somebody or we see somebody publicly, and I remember probably one of the ones that got the most attention, especially within the Black community, was with Botham Jean. When the brother was killed, when he was in his apartment and the lady walked in, the cop, killed him in his own apartment and said all this stuff. And then in a courtroom, how the brother of Botham Jean said, I forgive you. And he was talking to the lady who killed his brother.
I was watching that.
And it was, and I remember looking through social media and I being angry at the time myself, I was conflicted because, there was a lot of, oh, this is a publicity stunt and why are we always forgiving? And then they're going to do this again. But then when you take a step back and you go back to the concept of the scriptures, we're not forgiving for them. We're forgiving for us. Yeah. And so it's regardless about them. It's not about releasing them. It's about you releasing that hatred in your heart so that you can be free to move forward. Talk to that a little bit, man.
If you don't, it will destroy you. Mm-hmm. It will literally destroy you. Because let me tell you something. It was years that I carried around and I wasn't at my best at preaching. I wasn't at my best in ministering because I was carrying that around, and that can eat at you. It can eat at you. And every time somebody say something, it triggers it in your mind and you bring it right back. You regurgitate it right back up again. And all of that same old stuff comes right back up again. It's like you can't get past it. But once you forgive that person and God moves that thing out of your heart, it doesn't matter how many times the person's name comes up. Now I'm free. I'm free. I have no anger whatsoever. Let me add another piece to it. When I was in high school, I think I was a junior or senior in high school. Got into this argument with this guy. Apparently he thought I wanted his girl. And so I had heard that the dude was looking for me. And now, mind you, at that particular time, I won't say.
Oh, you're pre-bishop. See that? Look, we got a pre-bishop and we got a bishop. So pre-bishop Jones, it might not have been a Bible in my hand. It might have been something else in my pocket. So
I won't save then. And so I got word that the guy was looking for me. So 6th period happens. I'm bending down at my locker. I'm getting books out my locker. And I turn around and this dude is right up on me. And so he swings, glances my shoulder. And when I get up and I get him down and I'm getting ready to go to work on him, they pull me off of him. But I'm still mad. I'm mad because, I didn't get a chance to mop the floor with him. I'm mad. And Dorsey, I kept this in my heart for years. Here is how I knew when I paralleled that story with this story. Here's how I knew that forgiveness, carrying unforgiveness in your heart, it can ruin you. I was in Richmond, out of school. This thing done passed, years gone by. I see this dude in Richmond on the street, Richmond, Virginia. The enemy says to me, nobody's watching. Run him over right now with the car and be done with it. And I contemplated it. When I contemplated it, It won't nothing but the mercy of God that halted me. And I said, I was about to kill this dude. That's when I knew I needed help. And that's why it's important that you get that out of your heart, because when the enemy gets the opportunity to play with it, man, you can be his puppet.
Dude,
you can become the enemy's puppet, because everything in your mind, he's now showing you images, and he's playing these mind games with you. And so it was shortly after that I went to college and I got saved. And so circling back around to this, I knew once I forgave him, and this guy that I was going to run over on the street, if I see him now, I can hug him and tell him I love him. Man, I'm so free with him. I'm so free with this pastor. It's a feeling, man, that I can't even describe in words. But all I know is just like something sitting on you, been lifted up off of you. Now the key is now I've forgiven you. You held a little spot in my life. You held a front row seat in my life. Now I've forgiven you. I can put you in the balcony now. You don't have the right now to set up on the front row seat. But that doesn't mean I still hate you and I'm mad with you. You just lost that privilege.
Oh, because when we explain forgiveness in the context of the way that you just explained it, that would make sense to those who struggle with forgiveness. Because when people say forgiveness, a lot of times people automatically assume that means, okay, you just forget everything, you let them back in and all of that. Because there have been scenarios in which people have been abused. People have been taken advantage of, and all that doesn't say like, no, you just let that person back in your life or back around your kids or back around your, no, it's just saying, I am letting my hatred for you go. That doesn't mean I'm bringing you back. That doesn't mean that you coming in the house. That doesn't mean you coming to the cookout. You ain't, none of that. It just means I'm letting the hate in my heart for you go so that I can free myself and move forward. Because if not, I'm stuck. Dude, I'm gonna tell you what, and brothers listening, I would challenge every last one of you, especially with the social media stuff that's going on, looking at your personal life, looking at challenges, circumstances, everything that's going on. Who do you need to forgive right now? Like real talk, because I'm gonna be honest with you, everybody, if you're listening to this, and if you're honest with yourself, there's probably somebody that you need to forgive right now. It doesn't necessarily mean that you got to make some big public display, but in your heart, you need to forgive that person because that thing has been holding you back.
And here's what I would say to any of your listeners. You may have been wondering how come certain prayers haven't been answered. Why is it taking so long for this door to open? It's probably because you got to get that thing out of your heart. Now, someone might say that's watching us right now, well, what if the person that did something to me is no longer living? Here's what the Lord did for me with a member of mine who was sexually molested by her father at a young age. And he's dead. And she just couldn't bring herself to see him. And so she said to me, what do I do? Here's what the Lord said to me. Get a chair and sit in it. And you look at her and tell her everything you wanted to say to him, say it to me. Get it out. The main thing is getting it out. You got to get it out. You got to release it. And I just sat there. And I'm going to tell you something. I've never experienced a situation like that in my life. She was speaking just like her father was sitting right there in front of her. And when she got done, it was like a spirit of peace just came all over her. Done with it. With it. Done with it.
That is powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. So anybody that's watching, that's listening, that will be watching, it is for your benefit that you forgive.
Mm,
And you know, we always say, but it wasn't my fault. But
mm.
it ain't about them. It's for you. It's for you. It's for you. Because if you don't, the devil will use you like a puppet the rest of your life. You'll never be free to maneuver as the Lord needs you to, while you're heading towards your destiny.
Gotta forgive.
You got to forgive. Gotta
Mm.
forgive.
And,
Gotta
and so
forgive.
and so you know you touched on it a little bit. You know, you're one of 8 growing up, correct? And
Yeah.
then you're the youngest.
I'm the youngest out of 8, 5 boys and
Ooh,
3 girls.
ooh, Lord, so boy, you got to be tough then. You're a tough
Yeah.
brother. You're the
Yeah, I had to
youngest of 8.
scrap, man. I had to be a scrapper when you met at the dinner table, man.
Yeah.
A scrapper quick, man. You had to grab quick. Because we was poor growing up, man. So, you know, you cook one chicken for 8 people, man.
That's one piece, unless.
10. So, you know, daddy gonna get his from jump. He
Uh-huh.
gonna get the biggest piece from jump. And now you gotta when stuff coming around at the table, man, you gotta be able to do it, man.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
But that helps you to grow into who you are. You know what I'm saying? Learning how to scrap, learning how to network and build and grow and share, and you know, by default, you ain't got no choice.
That's right. That's right. And so let me take you back.
Okay.
Let's put the car in reverse and let's go back to me and my wife, young, 23.
Okay.
23. She's gotten bit by the tick. She's got Lyme disease. It had just Lyme disease they was just learning about it.
Mm-hmm.
And but prior to that, like I said, we had made plans. And so we had went to pick strawberries, and she must have picked up a tick somewhere while we went to pick strawberries up. And the way that Lyme disease works, it takes a while to get into your bloodstream. All of a sudden, she just started feeling sluggish and sick, and like, honey, I ain't got no energy. And we going from doctor to doctor. And it's just like the woman in the scriptures that had been sick, and she went from doctor to doctor, spent all her money, and nothing worked. Went to this one doctor, and he said it was all in her head. And so we were living back home in Louisa County. We went to UVA, and I'll never forget this lady. Her name was Dr. Starr. My wife had a team of probably about 10 to 12 doctors. These were some of the best at UVA. And they were all on her case, trying to figure out what was what. And I remember the doctor saying to my family, if God don't work a miracle, she ain't gonna make it. And so they had her in intensive care. My mother-in-law had wrote scriptures on a flashcard, index cards. Wife couldn't talk. She could barely open her eyes. Her speech was slurred because now the Lyme disease has gotten to the last stage, and it was going to her brain. And the only way they figured it out, they had to do a spinal tap. That's how they figured it out. But by that time, a lot of damage had been done. So she was in intensive care. Mother-in-law had wrote scriptures on index cards, but my wife couldn't see them, and her speech was slurred. Here's my wife's story. And she said one night while she was in intensive care, she said late. She knew it was late, like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. This one nurse came in. She said that nurse came in and sat down beside her bedside and started rubbing her hands. And that nurse quoted every scripture that was on those index cards. The index cards was in the little drawer beside her bed. That nurse came, rubbed her hands, and quoted those scriptures. Didn't even know the index cards was in there. And so what happened was a couple of days after that, my wife started improving. And so when they allowed her to come out of intensive care, she said, I want to thank the lady who came in my room the other night. And they said, what lady? And they said, these were the only two ladies here that was on your case. She said, not so. She said, it was another lady that came in my room. And what we determined that the Lord had sent an angel by her bedside and ministered to her. And she never seen that lady before in her life. She come out of intensive care, went from intensive care to a regular room, and from a regular room after a few days, and then home. She stayed in the hospital for 54 days. And now this Lyme disease started a snowball effect in her body. It went from one autoimmune disease to the next. She probably had, to this day, still have symptoms of Lyme disease where it affects her lupus, something called Sjogren's disease. She has no adrenal glands. She has the worst type of rheumatoid arthritis that you could have. She's 53 years old. And at one point, Dorsey, she was probably taking 50 pills a day. And it just snowballed into one thing after another. And everything that was going on with her, it was like rare. But it didn't all happen. It was during a process of time. So let me back up. So after she got through the Lyme disease, she started doing well. We started on with our life. I got called to the first church to pastor. But before I get there, let me back up. One day, we were living in Northern Virginia. We were going down to visit our parents. We just talking. All out of the blue, she says, I never want to be married to a pastor. I was like, where'd that come from? I mean, we weren't even talking about church. We weren't even talking nothing close to church. And then you could blot this out. You'll never want to be married to a pastor. I said, where did that come from? She said, I don't know. I just said it. And so I said,
Wow.
But her dad, she grew up because her dad was a pastor.
Okay.
The reason why she didn't want to be married to a pastor because she saw everything her dad went through. But we weren't even talking anything about that. But so I said, okay, I don't know why you came up and said that, but anyway, we going on down the road and we get on another subject. And a year later, the Lord called me into the ministry. And when I tell you he was dealing with me, man. And the more he dealt with me, the more I tried to run. And so I felt like, okay. I don't know what it is that the Lord is trying to do. I thought maybe it's going to be a deacon in church, but that won't it. I'd have took any position in the church other than preaching. I'd have took the janitor, anything, man.
Like anything. Like that ain't me, all right?
I just did not want. I would hear a lot of my friends, this person's being called into the ministry, and I was like, I'm glad it's them and not me. And so I remember this particular weekend, my wife stayed down and spent some time with my mom before my mom passed away. And then she went to spend a few days with her mom. So I came back that Sunday night to Manassas, and this thing was on me all the way up the road, Mike. And I remember before I got into bed, I knelt down to pray. And I said, Lord, whatever this is, I can't take it no more. I surrender. Whatever it is, just let me know what you want me to do. And you know, a lot of people always say the Lord speaks to them in the middle of the night. Well, that's what he did to me. It was right around about 1 o'clock in the morning. And I was asleep. I was in a dead sleep. And I'm telling you, I heard this voice say, preach my word. And Mike, I sat straight up in the bed. I sat straight up in the bed in the dark, and I'm looking around like, who said that? I laid back down, and I heard it again. So this was starting, going in from Sunday into a Monday. And all that week, man, this thing has turned me up. It's eating me up because I don't know what to do with what's going on inside of me. And so I said to my wife at the end of the week, I said, when I get home, I got to go see my pastor. And so when I got home, she was at my dad's house. I said, I'm going to see my pastor. She said, what's wrong? I said, I'll talk to you once I get back. So when I got to my pastor's house, he said, come on in. He said, come on back in my study. And so when I went back into the study, he said, what's going on? So I told him. He busted out, started laughing. He said, I was wondering how long it was going to take for you to get this message. And I was like, what are you saying? He said, I saw this long time. He said, the Lord showed me a long time ago. And he said, when the Lord showed it to me, he said to the Lord, you're going to take one of the best ones I got and you're going to call him into the ministry. And because I know what type of person he is, he's going to be called to a church in no time. Mm. And so he said, okay. He said, I'm not blind by this. The Lord had already shown it to me. So he said, what we're going to do is we will make an announcement to the church, and then we'll set up a date for your trial sermon. Mm. When I made the announcement to the church, I remember seeing my mom crying because she always said, you're going to preach. Mm. She said that when I was 12 years old, you're going to preach. And so I remember watching her face, and she said, finally, I knew the Lord was going to do this. Mm. But here's the thing. Before I got a chance to preach my initial sermon, she went home to be with the Lord. Mm. I saw her on a Sunday. I came back down to my dad's house, saw her on a Monday. And here's the thing. When I got there on that Monday, when we was getting ready to leave to come back to Manassas, I said to my mom and dad, I'm coming back the weekend. I'm going to pick y'all up because we going to a wedding. My cousin was getting married. I said, well, I'm going to drive y'all to the wedding. Y'all ain't have to drive. Just get in my car and I'm going to chauffeur y'all. My mom said something out of the blue, just like, she said, I ain't going. I said, come on, Mom. Mm. She said, no, I ain't going to D.C. to die. And I was like, what? What do you mean? Mm. I said, you ain't going nowhere. What are you talking about? You ain't going to die. I said, I ain't going to D.C. to die. I said, Mom, stop talking like that. Ain't nothing going to happen to you.
Wow.
That was on a Monday. 2:00 Wednesday morning, I get a phone call. Mom was gone. Mm. I get the kids up, and here's what I did. Here's what I did. It broke me when I heard it. So I told my wife, I said, get the girls together. And we were upstairs. I went down on the bottom floor. Lights were still off. I sat on the sofa and I prayed. And I said, Lord, I said, I just need you to tell me that she's all right and she's with you. And immediately, spirit of peace came over me. Mm. And the Lord just let me know I got her. Mm. And I should have known it because I was the one who led my mom and dad both to Christ. Mm. But at that time, so much was going on.
Yeah.
So when the Lord said that to me, I was able to get up. We got the kids. We drove an hour and a half, get to my dad's house. Man, Dorsey, people everywhere. I'm telling you, cars everywhere. And when I got there, my dad's youngest brother, he's gone on to be with the Lord too. He said to me, he walked up to me, he said, you got to be strong for everybody. Mm. He said, you can't break down. You got to be strong for the family. The family needs you. Mm. And Mike, I went for years without even grieving.
Wow.
Until one Sunday evening, after I gotten called to a church, this was years. First church I was called to, I stayed there for 7 years. And that was a learning experience for me. When I say learning, it was a learning experience because I dealt with a lot of family members. Mm. And now you want to find out if your family is crazy, you deal with them with a church meeting. You see all kind of stuff, man. So it was a learning experience for me. Mm-hmm. And I was like, Lord, why'd you send me here? Mm. But little did I know, the Lord was directing my steps. He was preparing me for everything that I saw and everything I had to experience. I leave that church and I pastored a church in Warrenton. I was there for 7 years. First 4 years, it was good. Last 3 years, Mike, I got my butt kicked. They wore me out, man. Just the officers of the church. they were so controlling, man, so controlling to the point where the Lord had showed me the vision for the church for 3 to 5 years. And I remember going into a church meeting and I just laid it all out. And after laying it all out, and I said, this is where we're going to be going and doing for the next 3 to 5 years. After that meeting, the chairman said, I need to see you in the office. And I come in the office and all of them come in there behind it. And man, I'm telling you, they looked at me and said, don't you ever get out there on the floor again and present a vision to the church without letting us see it and letting us go on over it first. And I'm like, but the Lord didn't give it to you. He gave it to me. And I said, now, if I got to do that, that means before I preach on Sunday morning, you got to look at my manuscript. I almost resigned then, but I didn't. I was so angry. Came home, my wife looked at me, and I would never allow my wife to go to any church meetings because I knew if I'm going to get beat up, I need her to be at home to come back and help me when I get back.
Absolutely.
You know, both of us getting beat up.
That's right.
I would never allow her to go. And so when I came back that night, she said, you resigned, didn't you? I said, I almost. And we talked it over. And it was just, I was just marking time because now the desire I had, it was gone. Because that last 3 years, all I did was just fight them jokers, man. Fight.
You know, when you say that, you know, there's this concept that, you know, when people show you who they are, believe them.
You got to believe them.
You got to believe them. And so, and it's like, even in the scope of ministry and with churches and with, you know, it's still there too, because you're still dealing with people as well.
You're still dealing with people, and people can say some hateful things. And so here, my wife's still dealing with all her autoimmune disease. She's on prednisone. And if you know anything about prednisone, it's a steroid. It makes you gain weight. And so taking all of that medicine put a lot of weight on her. And one of the head deacons said to her, if you stop eating, you wouldn't be so big.
Oh, Lord have mercy, man.
Yeah, Mike, let me tell you something. I'm a country boy. I done seen it. I can scrap with the best of them. And I love Jesus with all my heart.
But he was about to see these hands. He was about to see these hands. Yeah.
Man, let me tell you something. You can say whatever you want about me, but when you come against my wife or my babies, now you done cross a serious line. You done cross a serious line. You ain't dealing no more with Pastor. You're dealing with Frederick Jones now. But we get in the car and we on our way home. My wife just got this strange look on her face. And I'm like, what's wrong? What's wrong? Nothing. And I keep asking her, what's wrong? What's wrong? And I'm 10 minutes away from home. And then she finally says to me, what happened? And she told me that. I'm looking to make a U-turn. She begging me, please. She begging me. When I say begging me, she's begging me, crying, saying, please don't go back. Please don't go back. And I knew then that was the straw that broke the camel's back. My wife already dealing with sickness. She know the weight's on her. Taking all this medicine, and this cat says, if you didn't eat so much, it almost ripped her heart out. And so and one thing about, I thank God that he always allowed me to go before I did something, always go and get wise counsel. Wise counsel is important.
That's big, man.
There's safety in wise counsel.
Dude, there's safe, and I'm gonna tell you, wise counsel is also a buffer or a delay, right? So it's kind of like if you go to make a decision, how sometimes if you don't have counsel, they say at least just pause for 10 seconds before you react. Pause for a certain time before you respond. If you need to make a big decision, sleep on it. Allow yourself to, the process, because to your point, that little bit, and if you couple it with wise counsel, you then put yourself in the best position to respond effectively. Without it, you get the polar opposite.
Man, it could have went so many ways.
Oh, brother, dude, I'm gonna tell you. Look, you said that there's a song somebody actually sent me earlier from is a rapper named Toby Ingwe, right? And it was, and the title of it was "Try Jesus," but in the chorus he talked about try Jesus because you try me, you gonna see these hands. And so it was just like it was was the funniest thing to me, but it's so true at times.
And the thing about it is, any PK kids out here that's going to be listening to this, they understand, because when they see people do hateful stuff to their parents in ministry, it makes them not to want to be a part of it. My two daughters, they was like, you know what, if this, I don't want to have anything to do with ministry, because how can you say you love the Lord and you beating up on my dad? I'm watching this, and man, let me tell you something. Every time it was a church meeting or a deacons and pastors meeting, man, it was hell in my house. I would put my family through so much. I was so irritated. If the meeting was on Thursday, from Monday to Thursday, it was just tensed in my house, because I knew what I was going into on Thursday.
Wow.
But my family loved me so much that they were able to take it, because they knew it really wasn't that I was coming at them. It was what they knew what I had to deal with in those
stress.
Meetings.
Yeah, it's stress.
Stress. It was terrible, man. It was like they had their meeting before I met them. So they had gotten all our heads together on, this is what we're gonna do when he sat down with us. And so it was them against me. And so, you know, I couldn't live with myself as just saying, okay, I'm gonna bend. I'm just gonna bend to these guys, and I'm gonna be that little puppet. I couldn't swallow it, man. I just could not do it. I could not, for the life of me. I couldn't sell my soul out like that. And so I said to the Lord, I said, Lord, if this is all you got for me, if this is what ministry is all about, I don't want it. I don't want it. And so I got that wise counsel. And the wise counsel said to me, wait, don't leave mad. God gonna take the vision that he's given you, and he's gonna raise up a people. He's gonna take you somewhere else, and those people gonna live that vision out. And so finally, a year or two go by, boom. I hear the Lord said, now it's time.
Hold on. You got to pause right there, because you said this brother said this to your wife.
Yeah.
And then, but hold on. But then you said a year or two goes by. Yeah. And I know we talked about forgiveness earlier, but we also talked about forgiveness doesn't mean that you're in the same environment.
Yeah.
How did you deal with that? Because I ain't gonna lie, for me, again, I'm not a bishop. You know, I love the Lord, but the bishop thing ain't my calling. And so, it would be hard for me to be in the same. I would forgive from the standpoint of me releasing, but I'm not going to be in your presence knowing that you done said that about my wife. So how did you deal with that, brother?
Here's what happened. I got the wise counsel, and the wise counsel said, I know what you want to do, but don't. Don't. And the wise counsel said to me, the Lord will get your wife through it. The Lord will heal your wife's heart through that. Don't do it. Don't do what you want to do. Don't allow your flesh to take you somewhere that you're going to regret it later.
Oh, boy,
and so right now I have to deal with this. This is like submission. I got to totally back up, because he said, this is what he said. The wise counsel said to me, don't do it. Here's what's going to happen. Here's what's going to happen. The Lord going to raise up a people, and he's going to send you somewhere else, and they're going to take that vision and run with it. But then what he said was, he prophesied, I'll never forget it. He said, a brother that said it, he said, all out of the blue, something just going to pop up in his system. Some type of tumor going to come out of nowhere and going to take his life. And it happened just like that. It happened just like that. He said, just don't do nothing. Don't do nothing. Now you remember in the scriptures that when Saul was trying to kill David, and David had an opportunity to get Saul back, and he didn't. He was so close to Saul where he cut a piece off of his garment. And he said, I could have got you, but I didn't. I didn't. I could have got him, but I didn't. I didn't, because I heard that prophecy. So I knew, had I have been rebellious and done what my flesh wanted to do, that was going to play into the enemy's hand and sabotage God's plan.
Mm.
So I'm like, but all that time, my heart wasn't in being there.
Mm.
My heart just wasn't. I just showed up for the sake of showing up. Now, when it came down to preaching, I preached. But when it was Bible study time, any other time that they had something, I just wasn't there.
I wasn't there. That's right.
I had, as my wife says, I done already checked out.
Mm.
And so I remember every day that I would come home after doing my pastoral duties in the community that I lived. There was a school going into my development where I lived. And each time I came in, school was letting out. And I would see all different kind of kids out in the schoolyard. And the Lord said, look at the kids, look at the kids. And I look at the kids, and then he would start talking. And I was like, okay, so what's the deal with the kids? This happened for 4 or 5 times. And then finally, the last day, I come into the community heading home, and the Lord said, look to your right. I look to my right, I see all these kids. I get to my mailbox and I put the key in, and the Lord said, start a church right here in the community.
Mm.
And I'm like, what? Start a church? Now, mind you, my wife at this point, still sick. She's still going through her process with autoimmune disease. She's working, but she's still going through her process. She's still dealing with her health. And so when I hear it, the Lord gave me the exact date when to resign.
Mm.
When I resigned, they didn't even see it coming. I got up that Sunday morning, and excuse my language, but I preached the hell out of them.
Mm.
When the Lord he gave me so much freedom to just preach. And my sermon was from desert to destiny. I'll never forget it. Came out of Acts dealing with the Ethiopian. From desert to destiny. That was my final sermon there. When I got finished, I said to the church family, I said, I need everybody to stay here for a minute. I need something to say. And my resignation letter was 2 lines long. And it just said, I've made some friends since I've been here. I've had some good times, but because of irreconcilable differences with the officers, my time is up. And I said, I will stay an extra 30 days until you can find something. Now, while I was reading, the musician, he was one of the deacons, he was playing behind me, trying to play over what I was saying. That's how much disrespect they had. They were so much into controlling. So I finally stopped, and I said, hey, man, hey, stop playing the piano. I said, stop playing the piano. And I went back and I read my letter. And when I read that letter, the part that hurt me the most was the look on the older generation faces, because I had so much fun with them. I took them places. We went on trips, and they said nobody had never done this with us before. We went down to DC. We went to the museums. I took them all kind of places. We get on the church van and we just go. And they was like, oh, wow, man, they done ran another good one away from here. And so one sister jumps up. She was the first one. After I finished reading, she walks up and she hugged me and she said, I'm sorry to see you go. One of the deacon's wives come up, hugged me and said, you a traitor. That's what she whispered in my ear and walked out of the pulpit. And before the service started, I told my wife and my kids, I said, y'all sit together. So I said, something go down, I need to know where y'all are. I need all y'all to sit together. So service was over. Other members came up to me and they said, Pastor, if you stay here in this area, wherever you go, we coming. We not staying here. We're not going to stay here. And I just said, I love you and bid you Godspeed. And after that, the chairman of the deacon board said, can you come in the office? And when I got in the office, prior to me going out to preach that Sunday morning, I'd already took all the keys off and laid them on the desk. And so when I get in the office, first thing they say to me, where the church keys? I was like, dude, they was right here before I even went out to preach. If I'm resigning, why do you think I want the keys?
That's right. Like, well, I'm gonna come back in. I'm gonna come back in here.
Why you want to come back? So what the deacon said, he said to me, he said, were we that bad that you didn't want to stay? I said, if you had asked me that question, you already know. And so I left. I left on the fourth Sunday in June. I preached for a friend on the fifth Sunday in June. My first service was the first Sunday in July. Didn't skip a beat.
In your new church.
In the new church, because the Lord had already showed it. I held a meeting on the Tuesday night, going into after that fourth Sunday that I resigned. That Tuesday after that Sunday, I held a meeting. Because people were calling me and said, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? So I said, I'm having a meeting Tuesday. If you want to be here, come. Second floor of my house. It was about 7 of us. Now back up before that meeting, the Lord had told me what to do. And I met with just my wife and my 2 daughters. And the 2 daughters said, Dad, let's do it. Let's do it. They was ready to do it. But my wife, she said, honey, she said, I've been with you all this time. And she said, I've followed you, but this time, I don't know about this time. Now, I ain't getting no paycheck. She's sicker than she ever been. And she said, what if this don't work out? What do you have to show me that we have to fall back on if this don't work out? I said, all I have is what God said. All I have is his word. And Dorsey, she was having nightmares, waking up in the middle of the night swinging. The enemy was messing with her head. And I calmed her down and I said, what's wrong? She said, why did you do this to me? Why did you do this to us? I said, what did I do? And in the dream, we had lost everything. We had lost everything. But here's the revelation out of it. We had lost everything. And she said, we lost everything. We were in this roach infested place. We had lost everything we had. But what the Lord was saying was, yeah, you lost that, but I'm about to give you some new.
Oh, Lord, come on.
So my wife was still reluctant about doing this. And I said, okay, Lord, I don't know what else to say to her. You're going to have to do this. You're going to have to do this. So here's how the Lord did it. My wife had to have a surgery. She had no vacation, no sick leave. And they told her, you won't get paid for the time that you're going to be out. They told her this on a Monday. On a Wednesday, after I prayed and said, Lord, you're going to have to show her and speak to her and let her know what you said to me. On a Wednesday, her boss comes to her and say, I've been watching you for the last 3 years. You've been doing the work of 3 people. He said, what I want you to do is go home, get a title, make up a title, and everything that goes with that title and all the duties and the salary. Come up with a salary and bring it back and present it to me. Took her 2 days. She brought it back. She presented it to him. At the end of the day, he said, I accept it.
Wow.
She called the girls. Before she even told me. She called the girls and said, you ain't gonna believe what happened. But she said, don't tell your daddy. So, I could always get anything out of my kids.
Absolutely.
So when I picked up the kids to go pick her up from work, they said, man, Mom got something to tell you. Mom got something to tell you. And I said, what is it? What is it? We can't tell you. We can't tell you. I said, I already know. And when I said, I already know, she said, they told you about the new position and the money. So my wife started telling me, she said, them kids can't hold water. when I got her, she said, honey, that was the confirmation that the Lord gave me that he had spoke to you. She said, I'm all in. I'm all in.
Brother, what you said there in that testimony and that journey and that story, it's the scripture, share your plans with the Lord.
Yep.
And you will succeed, right?
Yep.
Like but it also it ties back into what you were talking about in regards to forgiveness, how your prayers don't get answered when you harbor anger in your heart. And so brothers, like when you're listening to that, I mean, it's challenging to think about it, but when you really stop and really think about it as to why things maybe have not gone the way that they're supposed to, not the way that you necessarily want them to go, but the way that they're supposed to, maybe there's this harboring of anger, resentment, hate, or something in your heart, one, but then also maybe there's this situation in which you have not shared your plans with the Lord and asked the Lord to work on your behalf.
Now, here's the other piece that I left out. Prior to me resigning, I got an offer to go to Surrey, Virginia. It was a big church down Surrey, Virginia, down near the Norfolk area. And it was a huge church, probably about 400 people, big church, elevators in it. And they needed a pastor. So they invited me to come down and preach. A friend of mine told them about me. They invited me down. I went down and preached. And after I got finished preaching, this old deacon stood up. He said, "Young man, have you submitted your resume?" I ain't say nothing. I just sat still. He said again. He said, "Young man," he said, "have you submitted your resume?" And I said, "No, sir." He said, "I've been a deacon here for over 50-some years. I ought to be able to say something. And I'm standing up today to say you need to submit your resume." And as I was walking out the church, he grabbed me by the arm and he said to me, "You're going to be our Joshua.
Wow.
You're going to lead us to the promised land." That sounded good to me because I was at a place that I didn't want to be at. So at that time, that sounded good. I was like, "Okay, Lord, I hear you, man. You about to take me from the pit to the palace."
But this is also after you had been given the vision of what it is you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
So it's a trip. Think about that. You've been given this vision of what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
But in the midst of that, you're presented with this opportunity.
Yeah. And let me tell you how this thing went down. So I preached. They invited me back down again. I went back down there, preached. I was, man, Lord, just let me preach. And so after it was over, they called me into a meeting. They called me into this meeting and asked me some scenarios about if you was our pastor and this situation came up, what would you do? And so after that, they said, they were all impressed. They said, we're gonna send you something in the mail. We're gonna submit you with a package. They called me after I had gotten back home and said they were impressed. They wanted to submit a package to me. Something will be coming in the mail. Package came in the mail, Dorsey. I looked at it, and the Lord said no.
And look, again, context. You're still the pastor of this other church.
Yep.
You were very unhappy. It was a contentious relationship.
Yep.
You knew it was
time to go, man.
You was ready to go.
I was ready to roll out. This was. I was thinking, this is my exit here. This is it.
So fellas, context. See, if you're not a pastor, I'm not a pastor, so you got to put this thing in context. You're at a job that you despise. You got a bad boss. You got horrible, toxic work environment. You're not making the money you want to make. Everything is just toxic.
It's disruption in my family and everything.
And you know that you need to leave. So you're working at a place like this. I'm just giving context for brothers who are not in ministry. You working at a job like this, and then all of a sudden, a friend of yours hooks you up with another opportunity that is everything that you could imagine and more. Everything. It would completely change your life, change your trajectory, and you're currently in despair. But give me the but on this.
Here's the but. So they send me the package. They got a parsonage, house right next to the church, all the benefits. I looked at it, and the Lord said no. So the next day they called and said, 2 days later they called and said, "Did you get the package? Did you review it?" I said, "Yes." And they said, "What you think?" I said, "I can't." They said, "What?" I said, "I can't take it." They said, "What do you mean?" "Well, what did we leave out? Did we miss something? Please tell us. Did we miss something?" I said, "The Lord said no." So here's what he said. He said, "Let me call you back." So he went and had a meeting with the team again and sat down. They put another package together.
They sweetened the offer.
More money. They was adding more sugar to the tea. And And they said, we got another package we want to offer you. Wait for it to come in the mail.
Mm.
And they had fattened it. And when I got it, they said, when you get it, give me a call. It was just one brother. I'll never forget it. I called him. He said, okay, all right, what you think? I said, it's a nice package, but I can't take it. He was like, man, what? He's like, serious? I said, man, the Lord said no.
Wow.
The Lord said no. And he said, okay, all right, I'll go back and I'll tell the committee. A month went by. They sent me another one.
Mm.
They sent me another package and said, we just want to make sure. If it wasn't more that we could do, take a look at this.
Mm.
And the Lord said no again. And I said to the brother, I said, man, listen, I appreciate all the packages you sent me. But I said, I don't want to waste your time and I don't want you to waste my time. The Lord said no.
Mm.
So I said, y'all need to look elsewhere. And I can't take it. I can't take it.
Wow.
And here's the thing about it. Had I took it, I'd have been out of the will of God. My family would have been out of the will of God. And that the pastor that did take it, chaos broke out. They got to fighting with the pastor. And it was just a complete mess. I heard the Lord say, obedience. Obedience.
Ooh, obedience. That's, I'll tell you, it is challenging sometimes to exercise obedience. It's easy to justify obedience when you're talking about bad behavior, right?
Yeah.
But it's challenging at times to exercise obedience in the midst of opportunity.
Man.
Like I'm saying, because you start thinking, and again, putting in context, like, you know, you got the best deal in the world, or you got the best job opportunity, or you got the, you know, the best person, you know, you're single and, you know, you meet the person that seems like the person of your dreams. She checks all the boxes, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But you're having to say no to an opportunity. That to me is probably one of the most challenging decisions that I think all of us would have to struggle to face with. Because again, you're talking about, you know, saying no to a bad situation. Okay, that's pretty much just us saying no to something bad. But saying no to something potentially good, woo!
And the Lord was checking my heart to see how obedient I was going to be. Because when he said no to me, he didn't tell me why. He never told me why.
Wow.
Until that pastor, the next pastor came in and took over. And he said to me, when that next pastor came in and all that stuff broke out, he said, they weren't ready. They weren't ready. And if had I have taken it, man, my family would have, I'd have jumped out of the frying pan into a skillet. And now I move into this new ministry, starting all over. I have no salary. All we depending on is my wife's salary. The Lord done bumped her salary up. But here's this white guy I worked with for years. He called me out of the blue. Here's what he said to me. He said, what is the Lord doing with you? He said, because the Lord told me I need to give you $400 a month. $100 every week. That $100, Dorsey, was equivalent to what the former church that I just resigned for was giving me. He said, the Lord told me I need to give this to you every month. He said, $100 a week. It's like, wow. Wow. And I only had 2 guys and all the rest women. And I had to buy equipment. All of this was coming out of our pocket because we ain't had nothing else. And I said, well, Lord, when we get ready to go places, what we going to use? My credit was tore up, jacked up. Lord blessed us to get a brand new Toyota Sequoia. Brand new. When we went in there to sit down to work the deal, and they went to run out credit, me and my wife looking at each other like, ooh. We don't get it. So, but it's good. We tried it.
It was a fun test drive. You know, we test drove it. We had fun test driving. Yeah.
We'll call you. We'll let you know. He said, but take the truck home. Take the truck home for the weekend. Monday morning, he called back. He said, everything went through. She looked at me. I'm looking at her, and I was like
how?
Man, it won't nothing but the Lord. Sweet deal.
Mm-hmm.
And we ain't miss a payment.
Mm.
We ain't miss a payment. We started off, and the church started growing. Wife was started getting sick again, passing out. A lot of stuff was going on. And for all of the people that will be listening to this, I want you to know that when you see someone who have looked like they've gotten to a place of success, it didn't happen overnight. It was a lot of pain, a lot of tears, a lot of hurt. All of that was in that lump. And you just don't go from you know the Lord will give you a glimpse of where he's taking you, but he don't let you see what's in the middle.
That's real. That's that faith part, man.
The stuff in the middle is hard, it hurts, but all of it is preparing you to get to here. And that was nice. Our family cried. That was nice. We were at each other's throats. There were Sundays when it just seemed like nobody showed up but us. And it was like, man, did I misread? Did I misread God? Lord, did you really say this? And so I started telling the people on Sunday morning, turn around and look to the empty chair. And there was a lot of empty chairs. And I said, just say, hey, welcome to New Life Community Baptist Church. We speak in faith. We speaking to members that ain't there yet. And then all of a sudden, the Lord sent a group of people. And you thinking, okay, we're doing good. But the enemy never stops.
Never.
He never stops coming at you. He never stops coming at you. Had this brother, and to make a long story short, and every pastor can attest to this. You're going to always have somebody in there that's going to try to come in and undermine and try to pull the folk one way. And I had this brother that did it. We had a young lady that got young. She got pregnant out of wedlock. He said, we need to not let her come back. He just wanted harsh judgment. I said, I won't do it. He wanted her to come up to the front of the church and confess her sin and ask for forgiveness. And I said, not going to happen. I said, if that's the case, everybody in church need to be up here.
Absolutely. We all done messed up in some way, shape, or form. Absolutely.
So he was calling people to his house, and they was having meetings. And because I didn't go along with it, 30 of them left. But I said, last thing, I will not throw this young lady out. And I held my ground. And then the Lord replaced that 30 with 60.
Come on.
He sent me some of the strongest people. Some of the strongest people and hard workers. I would just pray every morning, Lord, send me people that want to be committed, that want to do your will. He sent them. And then he sent people with money. So we could do the work it and do what we needed to do. And so about 3 years ago, there was a mudslide in Sierra Leone. We had a family in our church from Sierra Leone. There was a mudslide that killed thousands of people. A mudslide started in the wee hours of the morning, about 4 o'clock. It was foggy, and people said they heard something, but they didn't know what it was. And so at the top of the steep hill, all the rain that they had, all of it just broke loose. And when it broke loose, everything that was in sight, it washed it into the sea. Thousands of kids was washed into the ocean. And when we took our trip there, I remember the Lord said, take up an offering and send it to Sierra Leone. And I thought it was just a one-time deal, Dorsey, but it wasn't. That was the beginning of our work in Sierra Leone. And now we have a church over there. We have a learning center over there. We were planning to go back this year, but because of the pandemic, we were planning to go back we went in 2019. We was planning to go back again this year, but because of the pandemic, we couldn't go, but it never stopped us from doing ministry. And if you go to my website page, you will see all the work that we're still doing, and we're reaching families after families after families. We fed just about a month ago, probably over 4 villages. So the work is going there great. Now, had I been disobedient and just yield to the flesh, all of what the Lord is showing me now and what he's doing now, I'd have messed up, man.
Ooh, dude.
I'd have messed up. Now, listen, God's plan gonna go regardless of me. And God probably would have used somebody else if I hadn't been obedient and listened. But I'm so glad I did. I'm so glad I did. And people are being blessed. Souls have been saved. And it's just been an awesome experience. And check this out. Prior to the pandemic, we went in October of 2019. We had a 40-foot trailer of stuff we had packed. Beds, computers, desks, tables, clothes, disinfectant, masks that you wear, then masks that the doctors, nurses couldn't even find once this pandemic broke out. We had sent about 1,000 over there. Hand sanitizer, everything they needed for the pandemic, the Lord had already, we didn't even know it, but the Lord had already used us to send it over there.
Wow.
So when the pandemic hit over in Sierra Leone, they had everything that they needed.
They were ready.
Listen, the shipment, we was trying to get the shipment to be there by the time we got there, which was in October. The shipment got held up. The shipment didn't actually get there until a month or two before the pandemic.
Come on, man.
And when they unloaded the trailer, they had everything they needed to go through the pandemic.
Check this out. You know what's amazing when you talk about God's timing, right? Because to your point, the stuff that you sent, you had things in there that were in preparation for the pandemic.
Yeah.
Look, check this out. Had it gotten there in October, there's a possibility that the stuff could have gotten used before. That's right. So therefore, it got held up so that it was received when it was needed. The time that it was needed, it came on.
Let me tell you something. We have to be careful of cursing a blessing.
Ooh, Lord.
And now when the shipment didn't show up, I said, man, look, the devil done try to stop this thing and held up our shipment. But let me tell you something. When it don't work out the way you think, it ain't always the devil. The Lord's got a plan. And so we can't give the devil glory of holding stuff up. That was the Lord's doing. He held it up. He held it up. And here's the blessing. The blessing was they had stuff that we couldn't even find over here. You know, when this pandemic hit, we scrounging trying to find hand sanitizer and masks, and over there in Sierra Leone, they had everything they needed. I am blaming the devil that he done held the shipping up, and the Lord said, nope, it ain't got nothing to do with him. I held it up.
I got it.
I got it. And here's the reason I held it up.
Man.
But we just have to be careful of getting the devil glory, man. Because sometimes it's the Lord's doing.
Fellas, be careful. Be careful. I mean, you know, and that's why, you know, the concept of the power of your tongue, right? How, you know, we can speak life or we can speak death, right? And so when things happen that maybe don't appear to be favorable in the moment, we got to be careful, to your point, cursing that thing, because you know, you could be held up in traffic, which may help you to avoid some catastrophe and accident down the road, right? Or you could be held up with something because that's preparing you for something else, or holding it off so that you have it when you need it, i.e. this 40-foot trailer that got sent to Sierra Leone. Y'all wanted it there in October, but it got there when it needed to get there, which was right before the pandemic hit.
Or you can be in a relationship and all out of the blue, you get into this argument out of nowhere, and now you done seen something that you ain't seen before, and you saying the devil is trying to get in and mess this up. No, the Lord is orchestrating this because this ain't where he wants you to be.
Man, look, fellas, pay attention. But you know, part of that is you got to be connected to the Lord, one.
Gotta be in his will.
You got to be in his will, but then you also then have to be open to listening and paying attention, because I'll tell you, and this is interesting. Again, I'm not a pastor. I don't play one on TV, but the thing that's interesting about it is when you think about the Lord speaking to you, a lot of times we think about it like a movie where it's, you know, the person's walking, you hear this baritone voice coming from the clouds. Michael, you need to do, I mean, we laugh about it, but when people say like, I'm waiting on the Lord to speak to me, a lot of times folks have this kind of romantic image of it's this deep voice, the clouds parting, and there's going to be this image coming from the clouds. And no, you got to be.
Elijah said the Lord came to him in a still small voice.
Uh-huh.
A still small voice. So don't be looking for this big thunder and all of that. Man, sometimes it's in a still small voice that he will speak to you, or sometimes he will send somebody in your path to say something to you. But I'm telling you,
that's big. See that thing right there, and that's why when they say be careful, you could be entertaining angels, or because like literally how you treat people, you don't know who you're entertaining, and maybe that person, that child, that person you run into randomly is interacting with you to give you something, but you gotta, one, be connected to the Lord, but then two, you gotta be open to him communicating with you by any means necessary.
I would say that there's been some detours, there've been some bumps in the road, but when I look back over it, I thank God for all of it, because it has made us to be who we are. And you got to have the mindset to say, nevertheless, Lord, not my will, but your will be done. And let me tell you something. When you give your life to the Lord, when you receive Jesus as Lord means rulership. Your life no longer belongs to you; it belongs to Him. And so now you're serving Him. So it ain't about you. So if we can get over that situation where it's all about us, it ain't. Once you say, Lord, I receive you as Savior, Lord means rulership. Now He owns you. He paid for you with a price. We were bought with a price. So it ain't about us now. It's all about Him. So not my will, but your will be done. Whatever you want, Lord, here I am.
Your will be done.
Then me. And He already knows. He gonna take care of us. He gonna take care of us. And when we get into a situation where things just don't look like it's gonna make sense, and it gets hard, there may be some areas in your life that the Lord is trying to sandpaper down and prepare you for this next place that He's taking you. So don't be ready to cast it all and say it's the devil.
Fellas,
I appreciate you tonight,
man.
Yeah, my story, man.
Man, I appreciate you, brother. And as we kind of wrap this thing up, because again, this is powerful discussion, and I could literally talk to you for hours. I'm loving this. I want to get your perspective or your take on how this journey, these things that you've gone through, that you've overcome, that you've dealt with, how has this come full circle to impact you as a father, specifically a Black father?
Okay, so what it has done, when I look back at my two daughters, when my wife got sick, and she was in the hospital for 54 days, that means I had to dress them. They looked up to Daddy to dress them. I couldn't plait hair from a man in the moon, but I did the best I could. And from that time, they looked up to me. Mama was in the hospital fighting for her life, and Daddy had to dress them, comb their hair, make sure they had everything they needed for school. Daddy had to sit down with them and help them with their homework. And as they grew into adulthood, we've always been open. There was nothing that we haven't been able to talk about. And what I've shared with my daughters, I said, as your father, even when you go out on your own, you're gonna still be my children, and I'm gonna still love you. But my job is to protect you. And one thing my daughters could say is that they appreciate everything I tried to do as a father, even when Mama was not in the picture. They knew that when all else failed, Dad was the one that they knew that they could count on. When Mom was in the hospital, the last major surgery they had, they took out part of her intestine, and she had probably 20 tubes hooked up to her. She went in at 6 o'clock in the morning. We didn't see her until midnight. And when the girls saw and they saw that mama in this shape, they just broke down. And I held both of them up in my arms. And they have seen me go through some stuff.
They've seen me bend, but they never saw me break.
They saw me bend, but they never saw me break.
Yeah. Yeah. And what helped them to respect me as their father, to look up to, they saw consistency. It wasn't Daddy was here a little bit and then he was gone. I was consistent. And that upbringing, I was consistent all through that life.
Fellas, consistency, but allow your story to strengthen you so that you can get to a point in which you can bend and not break. Deep. Brothers,
they saw Daddy bend. They saw Daddy bend plenty of time. But what they admired the most, he didn't break.
They saw Daddy bend, but what they admired it most is they didn't see Daddy break.
Yeah.
Brother, Bishop Jones, I appreciate you, man. Like literally your testimony, your journey, your story, you know, the way that you've allowed the Lord to use you, and then the way that you freely shared that with other brothers so that they can gain something from your story and apply to their life. I salute you and I applaud you for doing so. And I appreciate you for that. And I say thank you, because we, you know, Black Fathers Now, man, we really appreciate brothers like yourself coming and sharing your story, because this is going to help somebody. And I thank you for that.
I appreciate you. And to all the brothers who might get an opportunity to listen to this, listen, don't beat yourself up if you get it wrong, because we're going to get it wrong sometime. We're going to get it wrong, but just stay consistent. Stay consistent. Stay consistent.
And strengthen yourself so that you bend and don't break. So how can the brothers and the ladies listen to, how can they catch up with you? How can they connect with you, follow you, social media when the church is open back up? How can folks get in touch with you?
I'm on Facebook. They can catch me on Facebook. And you can follow me you can follow our church on the New Life Community Baptist Church, Bristoe, Virginia.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
And you can catch us on, we have our YouTube. It's YouTube at New Life CBC, all in caps.
Okay.
All right. And then we're live every Sunday morning on Facebook, and we're live on Zoom as well every Sunday morning. So we will post, if you go to my page on my Facebook, that you're going to see a post every Saturday about probably what I'm going to preach the next day.
Okay.
So easy to find. And if you need to talk to me, or email me, my email address is jnfoj64@gmail.com.
Gotcha. And I have all of that in the show notes, fellas. So the Facebook is the New Life Community Baptist Church, Bristoe, Virginia. On YouTube is New Life CBC. And then if you need to email Bishop Jones, is jnfoj64@gmail.com. And I'll have all of that in the show notes so that you can link to him, connect to him. And if you reach out and you haven't already heard about him, let him know you heard about him and heard about his story on Black Fathers Now, because the brother's doing some really awesome stuff, man. We've got to continue to encourage you, brother.
And Mike, I'll say to you, you're doing a great job and with your platform. And I got to give my boy Michael Sturdivant a shout out.
Yes.
Mike, I call him the mayor, and he has hooked me up with some great people. And if it wasn't for Sturdivant, I would have never got the opportunity to meet you. And so, man, I appreciate you. I salute you. And what you are doing, man, you're making an impact of all the fathers out here. And we need that. We need that. And so thank you, man, for stepping out and hearing the voice of God and doing what he said, because we need it. We need it.
I appreciate you, brother. Yeah, shout out to Mike Sturdivant, Bandwagon Mike. If you didn't know, shout out to him for hooking us up, man. I appreciate that. But thank you so much, brother, for sharing your time. And fellas, and ladies listening too, make sure to, again, connect with Bishop Frederick Jones. I'll have his information in the show notes for Facebook, YouTube, an email to connect with the brother. He's the pastor and founder of New Life Community Baptist Church in Bristoe, Virginia. Check him out. Again, once the doors and stuff are open, y'all check him out. Go worship there and connect with the brother, man. Got a great story, great family, and great wisdom, man. Great insight. And as always, make sure to visit blackfathersnow.com. Subscribe via Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, anywhere you listen to podcasts. Subscribe and share this episode out. This episode on faith, on forgiveness, on being patient, on listening to God. This thing right here is going to really help somebody. Share this thing out because we want the brothers to become the best versions of themselves, because when they do that, they end up being the best men that they can be, the best husbands that they can be, and the best fathers that they can be. And that's what this thing is all about with Black Fathers Now. So fellas, until next time, y'all be blessed, well, and wise. And I'll holler at you. Peace.